Well, hey everyone, Hudson here, and this week's Approaching the Scene, I'm actually gone from the studio. I'm on a road trip myself down through Death Valley National Park to teach a photography workshop down there. So I'm going to share a video that I created last summer on another road trip through Bears Ears on a new moon, photographing the Milky Way and doing some time lapse in the Milky Way. It's kind of a little behind the scenes of the road trip and that low light photo shoot. So this week, while this thing's airing, I'm going to be down in Death Valley. There's going to be a new moon. We're going to do some Milky Way work. There's probably some snow low in those mountains. There's a ton of crazy weather down there, really cold temperatures for down in Southern California, Nevada. It's going to be kind of exciting. I'm really stoked about it. So in the meantime, enjoy this video. It's from my core photography training course, and I'll pop back after and answer a couple questions. It's just crazy to think that there's any kind of road getting from here to the top of that thing. Obviously, a big reason I take trips like this is to shoot photos, but so much of traveling to a new place is also about the adventure, the unknown, not knowing what's around the next corner. That's a turn. Dang. For both myself and the producer Andy, this trip became a good reminder of what it's like to be without Google Maps, email, or Instagram, and answers right at your fingertips. Bears Ears is big, and it gets relatively few visitors. Woo! That kind of solitude meant that when we did run into other people, we were genuinely happy to see each other. Out here, it's actually nice to bump into other people because they help you find what amazing spot to check out next. We've hardly seen any clouds on this trip, which makes for some boring skies. But that's a good thing for night photography, and our timing is just right to coincide with a new moon, which always gets me thinking about how I can capture the Milky Way. First off, basically it's getting darker and darker out here. And I need to autofocus this camera and then double check its focus manually. Oh, you know what's going on? It's been a long day. I left 10 stops of neutral density in front of that lens. I'm trying to figure out why I can't see my subject. It's not that dark. So I sort of messed up. I've been doing a time lapse and I was using 10 stops of neutral density to have a slow shutter speed. I forgot that I had that on there. So I'm replacing it with my UV filter, and now I should be able to live view on this. Ooh, look at that. There we go. That's what I want to see. Look at that view off there. And then I can tap and then just manually focus this lens and use my reading glasses so that I can get a really accurate view of what I'm doing. Just get that edge razor sharp. It's good to do this at the blue hour before the light really goes dark in order to make sure that you've got your focus right. Now, it's interesting. The Nikon D850 isn't that much newer than the D500, but its live view is a lot better in low light. I can see the noise kind of rippling through this as it amplifies the light signal so that I can see what I'm doing by boosting the ISO. You want to do this with your aperture wide open so you can get the brightest view you can get in dim conditions. It's pretty close to the Infinity logo. Alright, so that's focused and ready for when we get the Milky Way rolling through our scene. That's 2 cameras done. And then we just cook dinner and wait for the Milky Way. We are set. Make sure that I turn off autofocus on everything. There's nothing worse than spending all this time figuring out your focus manually at blue hour, waiting for the dark of night, and then realizing autofocus is on and you accidentally bump the button and it just goes searching for focus and totally blows it. Another little trick is I was using this mountain back here because the sunset behind it, even though the scene I want to photograph is over here, just because the sky is much brighter and more backlit at the blue hour where the sun went down. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to figure out exactly where that focus ought to be. I might roll up and figure out composition while we still have some light. I mean, it's going to be dictated a little bit by the Milky Way, but I'm pretty sure the Milky Way is going to be right over this awesome rock in front of us. So let's tuck these guys away. I absolutely love photographing in Bears Ears, Moab Arches, Canyonlands. It's literally, that section of Utah is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And I don't think you can go enough times that you get bored of shooting there. There's just so much to photograph. I'm actually running a workshop there in, let's see, it's I believe kind of early October, like late September, early October this year. I haven't quite opened it up yet, but I'll be opening it soon. For those that are interested in workshops, I have a couple spots remaining in the Coast Workshop in the Southern Oregon coast. There's some workshop slots remaining in the Northern Oregon coast this spring. That's one of the upcoming workshops. Very few spots for the Palouse. Very few spots for Charleston, which is coming up fast. So if you want to get out on a photo adventure with me, there's some opportunities. There's going to be a Patagonia trip, Olympic National Park trip announced pretty quickly here, and some opportunities here in Portland as well this summer and fall. So look for those. Those are coming soon. There's links on the YouTube description. For those of you that haven't been watching Approaching the Scene, one of the things that I really, really enjoy about this series of Thursday videos that I put out each week is the fact that the community forms the conversation and kind of drives the content. So I like to answer a couple questions in each and every video, and if you have questions, just go down here on YouTube, hit those comments, put your question right there. You can email me, I'm easy to find too, if you want to send me just a question via email. I take all that stuff really seriously, and I love responding to the YouTube comments, so make sure that you join the conversation there. One of the questions that I frequently get is what my preferred method for carrying cameras around is. And I'm going to start with the simple. A lot of people see videos where I'm just kind of roving along, hand-holding the camera. And that's usually because I've been carrying my big f-stop Suka backpack or my smaller f-stop Talopa backpack. I'm out someplace wild, I've pulled the camera out, and I'm working with it. And I'm a person, I absolutely can't stand having something flapping around on my camera. The minute I get a new body, I take those little triangular lug straps for the stock straps off. I don't want anything moving around on my camera when it's set up in the wind on a tripod. I put an L bracket on. I want to be able to mount vertical, mount horizontally, whatever kind of tripod I'm on with an Arca Swiss clamp really quickly, really easily. And so I actually like just kind of hand holding it, walking around. It's either in my back pocket, it's in my hand, but if I'm going to be doing any sustained walking around with a camera, I like a sling strap. My preferred sling strap right now, I'm really enjoying Luma Labs Loop 3. And you just, it's got this little screw mount. It'll go into the tripod socket on the base of your camera, or any good L bracket has a tripod 1/4-20 threaded hole on the L bracket itself. So it just threads right to that L bracket. It's got a nice little hinged piece right here that sort of moves with the camera. And then you simply sling it. I'll try not to hit my mic here. Sling it over your shoulder. It's adjustable. It's really easy to change the length of this thing with this little slider right here. So you can tuck it up tight so it's not flopping around, but whenever you want it, boom, your camera's right there. It's that easy. And if you're shooting video, you can stabilize the video by just pushing out to the end of that leash, and you kind of have a little bit more of a tripod-like system. But for shooting stills, it's just right there whenever you want it. You want to tuck it up to where it's not flopping around on you. You just simply pull that strap down snug. It can rest right there. It can rest on your back, and it's not going to move around. That's my method for carrying. I know a lot of people are really enamored with the Peak Designs clip straps. You know, I think those work great if you've got a pocket camera or if you have a really small micro Four Thirds system and you're not carrying a very big lens. When I've got a big body like the D850 or even the Z6 or Z7, the Z cameras with any kind of reasonable full frame lens on them, that's just awkward hanging on my backpack strap. It's just too much weight. I don't like the little mechanism that plugs into that clip because it makes it so I can't have an L bracket. I would have to take that thing off to get an L bracket on to be able to mount on a tripod quickly and easily and securely. It's not my kind of system. So that's my opinion. You know, take it with a grain of salt. When I'm carrying a backpack, there's a reason I really like f-stop, and that's because of the harness system. You know, camera systems, if you're carrying some reasonable glass, if you're out on any kind of an adventure, you know, I want easy access to my gear. I open these zippers, you know, there's a nice padded internal camera unit in here. All my stuff goes in. I can put different camera units in it. They just bolt in. You can put different size ones. I could load this stuff up with an overnight, you know, winter backpacking kit with a smaller ICU with a couple of lenses and a camera. Or I can put this big pro deep ICU in for traveling abroad, and I can just zip this thing shut. There's lots of attachment points on the outside of the bag. It's much more like a full-on backpacking bag. I have a smaller version of this called the Talopa. This is my big Suka. But the thing that I really like about it is that when I put it on and I do this waist strap, right now it's sort of hanging from my shoulders, and I don't want any bag full of heavy camera gear to hang from my shoulders. I want to be able to cinch this waist strap like a real backpack and just kind of get the shoulder straps just tight enough that it doesn't fall off and have all the weight on my hips where my legs are carrying that weight. There's really nothing hanging off my shoulders. This whole system is just designed to balance the weight on my hips. And to me, you know, I've tried a number of other modern backpack brands that purport to make, you know, a real functional hip carrying bag, and just none of them seem to be ergonomically as well designed. This feels like a real solid backpacking backpack. Now that said, when I'm traveling through an airport or something, you know, in the old days, I used to go with, you know, this loaded down with 40 pounds of camera gear on 4 flights to get up to the Arctic, and it just slung on my back and went into the overhead on the plane. These days, I often have a couple of toddlers, a stroller, you know, snack bags, everything else, and I'm just not as young as I was, and I like to have that gear, you know, moving through airplanes and airports. And nowadays, often what I do is I'll just pack this thing full of fragile type of stuff, chargers, you know, things that even clothes, socks, whatever. I'll stuff this thing so that I'm not wasting any space, put it in the duffel, put my tripod and a tripod bag in the same duffel, you know, some stuff sacks full of clothes to just kind of round the duffel out, cinch it, check that bag at 50 pounds, and then I put all my important camera gear in this Think Tank rolling bag. This is their Streetwalker 2. It rolls through the airport really nicely. I can hang my laptop bag off it. It fits right into the overhead, and so it's off my back. So, you know, I've kind of relented. I wouldn't, you know, this thing can convert to a backpack if you really need it to. There's backpack straps hidden here in the back. But again, it becomes one of those kind of unergonomic backpacks that doesn't put any weight on your hips. There isn't even a hip belt to set this thing up with. It's just all going to be hanging off your shoulders, breaking your back. So this is a great thing to roll through airports. A lot of the time I travel with both of these, and the essential gear goes in this so that it can roll onto the plane and stick in the overhead. Less essential gear and sundries get packed in this, and then when I'm actually going to hit the trail, I just transfer the gear. So that's my method for working with stuff. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. I'm hoping to film some fun stuff in Death Valley, a little preview. I'm planning teaming up with my good friend Rick LePage and doing a little autofocus test between the Z6 and his A7R3. And also just looking at those two viewfinders side by side. I think they're both excellent mirrorless viewfinders. And the two of us are looking at having a conversation in the desert while we're out there. So look forward to that one.